So we've been getting many questions, of course, about facilitating certification exams for students from home or from a non-testing center environment. So we wanted to be able to share the solution that's available to all of you, as well as just give some background information on some of the certifications that are available and CCI Learning as an organization. We'll take a quick look at our agenda here. Oops. So we do have a fairly tight schedule today. We've got a few minutes for introductions. Then we're going to dive into the value of certification. We'll talk about some of the different certifications that are available. I'm going to, at that point, pass it over to one of my colleagues who will share with you the Certiport exams from home system, and then we'll allow some time for questions and answers at the end. Just some quick housekeeping before we get started. We ask that you please do mute your microphones unless you'd like to ask a question. The Teams chat is being moderated by some of my colleagues, and so you certainly can ask your questions in the chat and they'll be able to address them for you. If there's a question you'd like to ask through the actual call, through audio, just request it in the chat there. They can unmute you and then you'll be able to ask your question live. Of course, we will have our Q&A session at the end, so feel free to save your questions for then as well if you would like. So I want to spend just a couple of minutes to talk about CCI Learning as an organization. We do have some existing customers on this call, but we also have some people that have never worked with us before. So I wanted to just give you a little bit of background information. CCI Learning is a Canadian education technology company. We're headquartered in Langley, British Columbia, which is about 30 minutes outside of Vancouver. And we've been in business since 1988. We started as a courseware publisher, so developing course content for software applications like Microsoft Office. About 15 years ago, we partnered with an organization called Certiport to help bring industry certifications from vendors like Microsoft and Adobe into the classroom. We've been working with educators doing that for many, many years now. And in the last couple of years, we decided to release a brand new piece of software called Jasper Active, which is a hands-on kinesthetic learning solution specifically for Microsoft Office. And it was our first foray into the software development world. So we have a great line of products that are coming out specifically addressing experiential learning and having students work in a hands-on environment. Jasper Active for Microsoft Office is the first of that. And the focus of our business going forward, of course, is always to provide educators and students with educational opportunities, connecting them directly to industry through certification. Very quickly, this is our belief system. So our mantra at CCI Learning is that every lifetime deserves to be maximized. We want learners to be able to work hard and ultimately reach their potential. We think that every student deserves a fair and equal chance to succeed. We very much believe in equity and equality for all. And with that in mind, we want to work with educators to help inspire them and inspire excitement in the classroom. We believe that empowering students with future-ready skills is of the utmost importance, and we want to be able to determine how we can maximize a learning experience for students. How do we prepare them for their future careers or for educational advancement? We think that certification is one of the best ways to do that. And we believe that learning needs to be engaging. I think we can all agree that learning needs to be engaging, especially under the current circumstances where in a lot of cases students are learning from home and focus perhaps could be a challenge for them. We need to be able to meet students where they are, and that means sometimes we need to challenge the status quo. We do need to keep students engaged and excited and remind them that learning can be fun. And these are the things that we believe in at CCI Learning, and hopefully you'll be able to see that by the end of today if you haven't already been working with us. A quick introduction to the team on the call today. So my name is Curtis Stieksma. I'm the North American Academic Sales Manager, and I'll be your MC for the webinar. We have Kathy Schmidt. She is our Regional Actualization Manager, and she's also the colleague that I'm going to pass this over to later in the presentation, who will share the exams from home solution with you. We have our Director of IT, Dan Sweeney. We have our regional account manager for Canada West, that's Dave Watson. We have Lexi Wynn, our sales and marketing coordinator, and Uzair Khan, our marketing manager. And again, all of these people are in the Teams chat with you. So if you have any burning questions, by all means, they can help answer them for you as we move through the presentation. So let's talk about the value of certification. Oh, I'm sorry, was there a question? Oh, maybe just. I think we just got to mute somebody there in the meeting if possible. I think there's a bit of an echo coming back. Great, thank you. So we're going to move into the value of certification, and I think I'd like to set the stage by sharing a video with you. So I'm just going to move on to the next slide here and begin this video with you.
No matter which career path you intend to pursue, the goals you set out to achieve, the job title you might earn, or the legacy you will leave, Microsoft proficiency is a valuable skill that will make you shine in a crowd of applicants. With more than 13 million potential workforce candidates and more than 400,000 jobs requiring Microsoft expertise in the United States, Microsoft certifications give people the power and the tools to chart their own course, fulfill their ambition, and realize their full potential. In fact, staffing agencies report candidates with certifications are 50% more likely to be hired full-time and receive an average of 10 to 15% higher wage. 91% of hiring managers consider employee certification as a criterion for hiring. 85% of supervisors report that certified employees are more productive and require less supervision. 86% of hiring managers say IT certifications are a priority. 89% are more satisfied at work. And Microsoft Office was the leading software package called out within the top 20 skills across representative occupations, coming in at number 3 on the IDC research list. These are just a few statistics that validate that Microsoft certifications give you the tools to build a brighter future. Start creating your own path and prepare yourself for a successful career with industry certifications that are globally recognized and the only certifications with Microsoft's stamp of approval. It's not just about getting the job. It's about enjoying the job.
So a great video there put together by our partner Certiport. Obviously, that particular video is focused on Microsoft Office and Microsoft certifications specifically. And we do talk a lot about Office because we consider it to be fundamental skills. But those same statistics can be applied sort of broadly across the ICT sector. So I want to share just some quick statistics, some of which you saw in the video there, but just spend a moment to quickly talk about them. So more than 50% of today's jobs require technology skills, and experts say that that percentage will increase to 77% in less than a decade. I think this makes sense. Probably most of you, I mean, if you're all on this call, you're using technology right now. Most of you use it day to day, and we're seeing that across multiple sectors, not just specifically related to technology or education. Employment growth in the ICT sector has been outpacing the overall economy for 7 years. And in 2018, ICT employment growth was 3 times that of the overall economy. By 2021, employment in Canada's digital economy will reach 1,637,000 jobs, creating 216,000 vacancies, which require qualified digital talent. And this one I love, 60% of ICT workers are spread across all sectors of the economy, while the remaining 40% are employed in Canada's ICT sector. So what does that mean? Well, what I take from that is that people are expected to have technology skills no matter what field they go into. We often talk about how small businesses are the engine of the Canadian economy. I don't have the statistics offhand, but I believe it's, the vast majority of organizations in Canada are small business. And I can tell you, CCI Learning being a relatively small business as well, that we wear multiple hats. Probably all of you do this too, but certainly it's expected that when you move into any type of job, but particularly in a small business, that you'll have multiple skill sets across multiple pieces of technology. And we find that certification and the curriculum that comes with it is a fantastic way for young learners who are entering the workforce or adults who are looking to reskill to learn multiple technologies and really be a well-rounded job candidate, ultimately making them more employable. So let's talk about certification and employment. You saw some of these statistics in the video, but I think it's worth it to spend a few moments just to highlight them again. So 91% of hiring managers consider employee certification as a criterion for employment. 81% of hiring managers feel that certified individuals perform better, and 79% agree that certified individuals are more efficient. 50% of individuals believe obtaining a certification makes them more marketable. And 89% of supervisors say that the MOS certified, that's Microsoft Office specialist, employees are more proficient users of the Microsoft Office suite. And that makes sense, right? I mean, if you've got somebody who's coming in and applying for a job, you want to make sure that they know how to use the tools on day one. Everybody says that they know how to use Microsoft Office, for example, or if you're in design space, that you know how to use Photoshop. But the reality is that it's completely subjective. And so earning a industry certification directly from the vendor says, not only do I say I have the skills, but Microsoft or Adobe or Autodesk also says that I have the skills. Let me share just a quick anecdote with you. I know I've seen this a lot in our office, and I've seen it in other offices as well. I'm sure you have, where you've got somebody who, let's say they're working on an Excel spreadsheet, they're building a pivot table, and they're stuck on a particular task. They can't remember how to get the data to display the way that they want. So they roll over and they ask their colleague, who comes over and takes a look, and now you've got two people who are trying to figure out the same problem. Neither of them can figure it out. They spend 5 or 10 minutes trying to, and so they grab somebody else, and then they grab somebody else. And next thing you know, you've got 3 or 4 or 5 people working on the same problem, spending their time doing it. And if they can't figure it out, you know that they get frustrated. They go back to their desks, they go online and they search how to find it. And you've ended up wasting, in total, perhaps hours of company time on a very, very simple task. And this all would have been preventable had somebody gone through and earned their certification. So earning that certification really says that you know how to use the tools up to a global standard, and you can be the expert when you're either seeking employment or looking to upgrade your own skills. These are some quick statistics that you can pull at any time from Indeed.com. If you haven't been to Indeed before, basically it's an area where job candidates can post their resumes and apply for work, and also organizations can post their job postings. So anyone can go apply. I've just taken a couple of the major cities here in Canada so you can see, and this is by different skill set, what's being or how many job postings there are. Obviously, you can see some different technologies there at Microsoft Office. There's quite a few open job positions in some of the major cities, and I think this just speaks to the point that Microsoft Office in particular is really considered an essential skill. In that video that I shared, you saw there was a top 20 in-demand skills for tomorrow's jobs, and I believe Microsoft Office was number 3 on that list, I think, coming in not too far behind having oral and written communication skills. So that just tells you and emphasizes how important it truly is. So ultimately, certification is the difference between saying that you have the skills and proving that you have the skills. Again, saying that you are proficient in an application or proficient in a piece of software, which is something that I think we've probably all done at some point. We're probably all guilty of putting that on our resume or listing it maybe even currently. The challenge with that is that your definition of it, of being proficient, is probably different than mine. It's most likely different than that prospective employer's. And certainly it's different than the developer of the software. So by saying I'm proficient, you're not really saying anything at all. You're just saying that I think I have the skills. If you're able to show on your resume, or your students are able to show on their resume, that they have a certification that is a global standard in that particular technology, has the stamp of approval from the vendor directly. So it's not a CCI certification, right? It's coming from Microsoft or Adobe. I think that really goes a long way. It shows that you have the skills coming in day one. You don't need supervision, and you can be the most productive as possible in your office. So that's a little bit about the value of certification, and I think we'd like to share in a moment a personal story, a student that we've worked with who has an incredible story about her accomplishments through certification. But before we do that, I just want to quickly show you all of the certifications that are currently available. So these are all the different certifications that we represent in Canada. We don't have time to go into detail for all of them today, but certainly if you're interested in hearing more, just let us know and we can share with you. I'll just move from left to right on this. We have the Apple Swift certification, which is the coding language for Apple iOS. We have the Intuit QuickBooks certification, so accounting software. There's a certification specifically for educators called the Microsoft Certified Educator that's all about teaching with technology. We have the EC Council certification series, which is basically the sort of ethical hacking, if you will. There's what's considered an attack and a defense. The attack is the ethical hacking certification, and the defense is the cyber forensics certification. So it's all about cybersecurity. We have an entrepreneurship and small business certification, which is for your young entrepreneurs out there. It's business fundamentals, business 101. We have the Unity certification, which is all about augmented reality and virtual reality and how to code in those for those particular platforms. The communication skills in business is a new certification that's all about using your language skills in a business environment, or sort of the appropriate communication within business. You saw that oral and written communication skills was the top of that in-demand job skills, and so this nicely aligns with that particular request. The Autodesk Certified User Certification is Autodesk series of exams, things like CAD in there, Maya, Fusion 360. The IC3 Digital Literacy Certification is a digital literacy certification. It's considered the sort of global benchmark in digital literacy. It is your stepping stone to something like a Microsoft Office or really any other technology exam. It covers the very baseline fundamentals. You have Microsoft Office Specialists, which is Microsoft's series of certification exams in the Office suite. Microsoft Technology Associate, which is the Introduction to IT certification series from Microsoft, covering a very broad range of technologies, everything from coding in multiple languages to database to hardware. There's quite a bit of different certification tracks available in the MTA program. And then finally, the Adobe Certified Associate certification, which are your Adobe certifications in things like Photoshop, InDesign, Premiere, basically anything in the Creative Suite. So with that, I think I would like to, at this point, pass it over to my colleague, Kathy Schmidt, who's going to introduce to you through a video one of her students that she worked with in the past. And then we'll get into the exams from home solution and what that looks like in our new reality. We've been in many discussions. It's actually been very, very busy over the course of the last 7 or 8 weeks that we've been facing these difficult times with COVID-19, and the majority of those questions is around, how do I keep my students engaged at home? Can they do things like certification? What type of online resources are there with little instructor supervision? What if I don't know how to teach something like coding, for example, to my students, and I don't have the physical book in front of me or something to go through and prepare for that? All of these types of questions. Educators, you guys are all working very, very, very hard and running very fast, like we all are. And so we want to be able to share some of those solutions with you today and basically walk through how it works. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Kathy Schmidt, who will introduce her story about one of her students. Kathy, are you there? You may be on mute still.
Yep, thank you so much.
Yep, no problem.
Great. I'm so excited to be here and to share this story with you. I am an absolute fan, maybe even a fanatic for Microsoft certification, because I've seen the change that it can make in people's lives, students and adults alike. And this particular story is about Ashley, and she just so happened to be my student, and Certiport decided to follow her based on her success. But her story is definitely not an anomaly. I've seen this happen in lives of many people based on their Microsoft certifications. So just a little preface real quick before we show the video. Ashley came into my class as a freshman, super excited to learn, sat down right in front of me, just totally exuberant, outgoing. And we got class started and weren't 5 minutes into class, and Ashley was in tears. And so, as an educator, I just quick was like, hey, are you all right? She's like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm fine. Well, long story short, 3 days of this, and I pulled her out of class and I said, listen, we got to figure out what's going on. She let me know that she's being bullied by several girls in the class and that she can hear them talking about her and she can't control her reaction. And so we chatted about that, but mostly I just said, hey, how about we change the focus? And so I brought her into the exam. It was way too early for it. It was first week of class, gave her some headphones and said, I want you to go ahead and try and take the PowerPoint exam because you said you've been playing around with Office for quite a while and you love it. So let's see if you can certify. And that was the day and the change in the life of a young woman. She's certified, woohoo, right off the bat with PowerPoint. She wasn't a couple days behind with that with Word, and then a few weeks in Excel, and it was 2 months and she was a Microsoft Office master. And then she became the go-between between those girls that she was having trouble with and me as the teacher, and there was an exponential amount of growth. With that said, I'd like you to see the change in Ashley and hear her story. So here's Ashley.
Become the best in the world at these technologies.
My name is Ashley Masters. I'm 16 years old and I have 12 Microsoft Office Specialist certifications. It all started with a freshman required class in my high school. I was so shy and nervous. I didn't like the high school setting. It made me very comfortable. Having certification put me in a different mindset. It put me feel comfortable and confident and like I really knew what I was doing. And that's something that a lot of high school students don't find. Then I started going to these competitions, of course, meeting hundreds and thousands of new people. I had to have confidence to step up and talk to them and communicate and start friendships and building relationships with all these people around the country.
She wanted to be good. She wanted to be good at everything she did. She just had a few emotional hindrances. High school was a new thing. Certification has been a vehicle to recognize greatness in students and help them achieve goals.
The advisor, Mrs. Schmidt, she posted on Facebook, Ashley just took first place in Excel 2013, and a sponsor saw the post and they're like, no way, that's awesome. We need her to come work for us and she can train all of our employees in Excel. And it was crazy. I was like, no way, that's so cool. And then a week later, I had my first interview with them and they hired me on the spot. I was 15 years old. I started off with about 4 hours per week. I would have maybe 2 people I would train each week and I would have a 2-hour session with them. We'd go over projects. We would use their worksheets so we could improve them. And about a week and a half later into the job, they had an opening for administrative assistant and I was offered that job full-time, 40 hours per week. I would encourage everyone to get certification. It's completely changed my life. I've gotten to travel the country going to these national competitions. Now I am training at the local women's shelter and I'm teaching them certification. Next, I hope to attend Central Washington University next fall. I would 10 out of 10 hands down recommend certification.
That is some powerful change there. That was 4 years ago, and every time I see that story or I tell this story, it is emotional for me to have seen the transformation in her and the things that she was able to do with that transformation with teaching at the women's shelter and teaching community education classes. And just to wrap up her story a little bit, freshman year, because she was so successful, she went to a Microsoft training where she talked to educators all around the globe. And at that moment in time, she said, I want to work here one day. And as of May, she will graduate Central Washington University, and she has been hired by Microsoft Worldwide Learning. So it's been a fantastic journey for her. So with that said, we're gonna jump into me sharing my screen and talk about, let me get that over there. Yep, we're gonna talk about Certiport exams from home. So I am super excited about this because it is fantastic what Certiport has done with this and the resources that they've developed in this situation that we're all in with distance learning and everybody at home learning. We were really nervous about students and people being able to certify, and Certiport has really stepped up to the plate and brought out a fantastic product. So Certiport exams from home.
Kathy, I don't mean to jump in. Sorry, I just want to clarify one thing for everyone who's not familiar with certification. Normally, a certification exam has to be done in a proctored environment at the school with a teacher or administrator facilitating the experience. So when Kathy says, this was a concern because obviously students are unable to go into a physical school to take the exam, Certiport was able to release this remote solution to address that directly. Just for anyone who was not familiar with the certification process, you normally have to go into a physical school in order to take an exam.
Thank you, Curtis. That's a great clarification. And they really have stepped up with this whole situation that we're in right now. And so what is a Certiport exam from home? It's an opportunity for anyone to test from home with a virtual URL link. There's no parent proctor required. It works on any machine except for an iPad or iPhone. And when we're, even Chromebooks. And then when we're talking about certifications that are available, all of those certifications that Curtis talked about earlier are available, except for Apple Swift. And when you're talking about Microsoft Office Specialist or MOS exams, it's 2016 or 2019. Candidates test in the reported testing center. So teachers or administrators who actually set the exams up tell Certiport or are able to use a drop-down to set what testing center they'll be testing in. And then that means that the reporting works in that testing center and your exam groups work if you're using exam groups and things like that. So very powerful product. When we are talking about the exams from home, there are two places to obtain information. The first is certiport.com/EFH, which stands for Exams from Home. And on this website, you'll find instructional guides and videos. You'll also find information on exactly the 3 types of scheduling that you can do. And we're going to go live here in just a minute, and I'll show you what those are. And then the second place is certiport.com. So from the EFH site, you can click a scheduling link, but right now there's an error in it, and it will cause an error if you're not previously logged in. So I always just recommend, if you're ready to schedule, just go to certiport.com, and depending on how you've logged in as an organizational administrator or an organizational member, you would hover over training and tools and select schedule exams. If you don't have either of those roles and you only have the proctoring role, you still have a schedule exams tab available to you. So let's go ahead and go live. I have gone ahead and preloaded all of these screens, these browser pages for you, just so we didn't have to wait for them to load. The first page that you come to is the EFH page, and they give you a little message that says that it's available until June 30th, 2020. Of course, I'm sure that that's all going to depend on how states are rolled out and how people are allowed to go back to school and things like that. So watch for developments in that on this page. The first thing that you'll notice here is that you can go to an exam administration page, a test candidate page, an exams list page, and a support page. And this is where you would find training and things like that. There are 3 types of scheduling for an exam from home. The first is called self-service option. And this is where you as the teacher are involved in scheduling. You are actually doing the proctoring. You receive an admin link, and we're actually going to see this live today. And you get to manage the screens and your students. The second is single service. This is when you only want one test candidate, and it has to be, if you have accommodations, this is where you would schedule for students with accommodations. The third scheduling is full service, and I'm not sure why that's not on this page anymore, but full service is when you schedule with Certiport, and they actually do the proctoring. You just manage the links between Certiport and your student. So I'm going to take a quick look at the exam administration page. You can see here that it's got all of the different type of scheduling. It's got how to schedule and all those types of things. Great information for you. It's got a video that you can go ahead and watch, and frequently asked questions. And you're going to find the same type of setup on the test candidate page, only here it's got the technical requirements for the test candidate and some important information for them, a little speed test they can run on their machine, and then a tutorial they can watch, and again, another video that they can go through. And each of these pages has a detailed PDF guide that they can download as well. And then you've got an FAQ here as well. Here you've got a list of all the different exams that are available. And then the support page just kind of indicates how you would get support. But you'll get an email from Certiport that actually gives you a link, and you can be live in a meeting with them so that you have support during your self-service exam time. When you click on the schedule tab or you're logged in, if you're logged in as an org administrator or an org member, you would hover over training tools and choose schedule exams. This would bring you to the exams from home homepage. And here again, they go over the 3 types. So there's self-service, where you are actually the proctor and you're administrating the exams. Full service is where Certiport is doing that. And single service again is where you're going to do for test accommodated students, and one-offs would be scheduled here. And sometimes it's a little hard to see. It's just this here link right here, and it takes you to a scheduling page. So for self-service and full service, you'll go ahead and scroll to the bottom. One of the things that you need before you get here that are very important is, as an organization administrator, if you click on My Certiport, you can see your Certiport identification number, your testing center number, and you'll need to write this down before you start scheduling because you have to fill this in. Unfortunately, proctors don't have access to this number, so they're going to want to get that from an organization administrator in their testing center. So we'll go back to the Schedule Exams homepage, and at the very bottom of this page, you'll see that self-service all programs except Autodesk are the first line, and then self-service Autodesk only. And then here you've got 6 to 10 candidates or 3 to 5 candidates. And you would click on See Times, and it's going to show you the first available slot, which right now is Friday the 15th. And then you can navigate through here and see what other kind of scheduling options are available. I will tell you that we know that Certiport is ramping up more virtual machines, so more of these spots will become available in the near future, which is fantastic. Because as of yesterday, they were out 3 weeks, so they've already added more time slots just since yesterday. Once you choose a time slot that you want to test in, you just go ahead and click it. You can verify what's going on here, that you're in the right type of testing, what the day and time is. This tells me that I'm showing in my time zone, which is Pacific Daylight Time. Again, you can set your time zone right here if it's not set correctly, or if you're scheduling for somebody else, you could choose a different time zone. So you choose your timing, you go ahead and enter your information, and here's where you would enter your Certiport ID that we got from the My Certiport page. You have to be sure to check this little box, and then you will choose the book will turn blue, and you can go ahead and book your appointment. Once you have booked your appointment, within 24 hours of doing that booking, you will receive this email from Certiport that's a confirmation of the time and all of the information that you just booked. They've got some links so that you can add this to your calendar. I will advise you that this Add to Outlook does the default Windows mail. So if you're really using a local Outlook client, I would use this invite.ics to add it to your calendar. If you want to reply, change, or cancel this appointment, you can click this button because it's in process right this moment. I can't click this, but I did go ahead and get a screenshot of what that page looks like. And let's find it here real quick. Right here. When you click on that, it brings you to this page where you've got some contact information. Again, all of your testing information is reiterated. You get some options over here. Normally this cancel button is over here in the middle, and so you can either send a message to them, or you can cancel it, or you can actually book this same setup again at a different time. Once you're closer to 24 hours up against the time of testing, you receive a confirmation email from the person who will be helping you test. These emails can come from many different people. They can come from exams from home at Certiport or at Pearson.com, but it's not consistent who they will come from. But what does come in them is if you are doing self-service, you'll receive an admin link, and then you receive all the links that you send to your students. Additionally, if you're doing self-service, you'll receive an invite to a Teams meeting. And what this does is 15 minutes before your testing time, this puts you into a Teams meeting with a Certiport administrator who can help you through any problems you might run into. For instance, when you get into the testing, people can take whatever exam they want, and maybe you have missed an agreement checkbox or something like that, or your proctoring account's not working, and they can help make sure that that is working. With that said, I always recommend to educators or administrators that prior to running your self-service session, make sure that in your testing center, you are set as a proctor, or whatever proctoring account you are using is actually set as a proctor, and that you have inventory and that your agreements are all up to date so that you don't run into problems in the session. You don't have to join that session every time if you don't want to. That's just there for your convenience, and it's highly recommended the first couple of times. I always track these, and we've tried to make this as easy as possible for you as educators. I track all of these URLs in an Excel spreadsheet. So it's just super simple. I run an email merge with this, so I have a little send column. I have a VM column, and I'll show you what that's for here shortly. Just first, last, their email, the date, the time, the URL, because when I get the confirmation, I actually send a reminder to the test candidates of, hey, we got a time, we got a date, make sure you're ready, you've cleared your calendar for that. I send a video about the Certiport experience from home, their test candidate guide, that great stuff. And then when I actually get the links, 24 hours prior to testing, I send another confirmation email with the actual link in it, and then exact steps on what they'll walk through when they're in the system and they are actually testing. So with that said, we are going to jump live into a session, and I've got some great coworkers here on the line. I'm going to jump into my admin link, and they're going to jump into their sessions. So just so that you know, Chrome is the preferred browser by Certiport, and you literally just copy and paste the link. Sometimes if you send the links as active links in the email, there's an issue with that, and they get stuck in spam, or they get seen as harmful emails. So I try to send them as plain text. So this is really interesting because we are into a link that we've been provided, and someone's already logged into it. And you can see that the links that I've given other people, they're trying to get into. So this is great. This is great for me to show you some of the FAQs that are at the end. If there's a problem and you're into a link that has not been set up properly, or someone else is in for some crazy reason, you're just literally going to log out up here, and then you're going to log in. And this is what I should have seen right at the beginning, but for some reason this link didn't get reset properly. So I will go ahead and log in here. And then I will see the option to choose my testing center, which I'm going to choose the CCI Learning's Testing Center. And then you'll start your machines. So interestingly enough, often it does not reset these machines. And so you actually may have to come back in here. See how this is still set to Spartan High School? Normally, Certiport should have these reset, but I'm just here to tell you that it's not a perfect world, and sometimes they don't get reset. So this is great that this happened. I'm on this first link, which is a demo link, and so I'm just going to launch Compass again, and then you'll see that it'll pick up the new testing center that I just set, which is the CCI Learning Testing Center. Because in all actuality, you are in a virtual machine for each one of these windows. And as I go through here, you can see that my colleagues who are hearing me on the line have closed their window and have relaunched. And Dave's already in. He's moving right along. So as you scroll through here, you can either use these jump links at the top of each one, and I could go to the 4th window, or I could go to the 5th window, or the 6th window. I've only got 4 people in here testing, so you can see that Lexi is already at her proctor screen. So this is what you are watching for. You're scrolling through here watching for people to get to their proctoring screen. And then you, once you hover over this, you can take control and you can type in your proctoring credentials. And then they can either unlock the exam or you can unlock it for them. Okay, so let's try this proctor. So I just checked this yesterday. Dan, I know you're on the line and I know I'm set as a proctor. So Lexi, I'm wondering if you didn't close Compass and restart it.
Yeah, she's trying to launch under Spartanburg High School.
Oh, right here. See, so this is great for everybody to see. See this testing center, Lexi, right here? She's in the wrong testing center. So you can just go ahead and go to the bottom and your test candidate can hit previous. But we're just going to actually have Lexi close Compass with the X, and then she'll relaunch Compass and she'll be back into the correct testing center. So that happens frequently, unfortunately.
So I'd like to just jump in quickly and just kind of reiterate a couple of the really important points here. So the really cool thing about this remote solution is, first of all, that we're able to accommodate certification exams from home. The screen that you're seeing that Kathy's been sharing is the administrator screen where you can actually proctor your students' experience because you can physically see everything they're doing on the machine during the exam. Very cool stuff. In addition to that, students don't have to install exam software. So normally in a testing center, exam software has to be installed. In this case, they do not need to be, which means students can essentially use it from whatever hardware they're working with at home. So it's a remote link. You click that and it connects you to a virtual device in the cloud. You're still using, a live version of the application for the exam you're taking, but it's a way that students can take the certification exam and proctors can still view and monitor the experience without having to install software.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and it really has streamlined the certification process. And so this is what you'll normally see when you come in here. There'll be a notepad. You can communicate with your test candidate, or you can be in a separate meeting with them on Teams or whatever platform you're using. And that's just basically it. Once they get done, their score report will pop up. You're scrolling through here or jumping through here, watching for folks sitting at their proctor so that you can go ahead and type in their proctor and they can go ahead and get started. And that it's this simple. It is really a fantastic platform. Once students get done, you may nudge them into, there's usually a Chrome link down here for a survey, but it's just that simple. They click on the link, they're in, you click on your link, you're in, and students, test candidates are testing and certifying, and it is just absolutely fantastic. One other quick note is that you can have multiple exams going on in here. They can choose to take whatever exam you have inventory for, you have agreements for in your testing center. So you could have students taking an Adobe exam or a Microsoft exam. The only one they could not take would be Autodesk because that's a separate scheduling type. So with that said, I'm going to cut these guys off, and that's pretty much it for Certiport exams from home. We were able to show you everything you needed to know. One note is that when I first come in here in my Excel spreadsheet, just so as an educator, I copy these VM machines because on my spreadsheet, I just drop them in right here. And then I know who's in what link because these are the orders that how you handed out the links. And so you'll know who is in what machine, and you can kind of navigate that because once they're actually into the exam, all you see right here is AZ tester. You can't see who's in there. So with that said, when you're all done, at the very top, Certiport has a little short 4 or 5 question survey they'd like you to take. And then you can literally prevent what happened to us from happening in the future, and you just log out, which is going to cut everybody off, and then you're back to this screen and you can close your admin link. And that takes us back to questions and answers.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for that. So absolutely fantastic. Happy at this point. We're actually right on schedule, which is pretty impressive. I'm pretty happy with that. Happy at this point to take any questions from anybody in the audience. I want to thank you all also for just taking the time to be here. I know it's very, very busy for everyone right now. You know, I'm sure there's a million things on your plate. So we very much appreciate that you've taken the time to learn a little bit about the exams from home solution, the value of certification, and for just being here with us. So happy to answer any questions you have at this time. Feel free to either unmute yourself and ask through the audio, or we can also monitor the chat and answer questions that way.
So I'm going to, oh, sorry, I'm going to answer a question here in the chat. Someone asked if they have questions. If test candidates have questions, do they use the notepad? So yes, they can use the notepad, or you can have a simultaneous meeting going on where they can verbally talk to you. It's your preference. If you're in full service, that is how they would communicate with the Certiport proctor.
And a question here as well. What does the full service option look like? So it's essentially the same thing for the student side. The only difference is that you won't receive an administrator link. The Certiport representative would be using that administrator link. So student experience is exactly the same. It's just that Certiport is doing the administrator side that Kathy just showed you.
And if you want to, those links that you send out to your students, you can actually jump into one of those links. Just don't hover over their active window or you'll take control of the window, but you can watch and see what your students are doing at any time you want to jump into one of their links. And one of the things that you may have caught when we were in the admin part is in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little gray bar that comes in that says whose IP address is coming in and whose IP address is leaving. But yeah, it's exactly the same. It's a scheduling link. It's that blue scheduling link, and it's just under full service instead of under self-service.
Just answering some more questions here. So there's a question from Jeff. How do I get an administrator link? Basically, once you request the time by scheduling it for your students, you'll receive however many student links you've requested and an administrator link at the same time.
And that's under self-service, Jeff. So that's the difference. When you schedule self-service, you get an admin link. When you schedule full service, you only get URL links to send to your students. I saw a note in here about cheating. So the Certiport and all of the exam people, the companies who have exams through Certiport, Microsoft, Adobe, QuickBooks, all of those people, they've all weighed the magnitude of what we're going through right now. And that's why Certiport has the option to show those entering and exiting IP addresses. If they feel that a student has cheated, or if a teacher reports that they think a student has cheated, on that test candidate guide, there is a bold red warning that says if cheating is caught, that if you're caught cheating, that your account will be terminated and you will no longer be able to test with Certiport. So that's kind of we know our students, and that's why I always recommend kind of jumping into their links if you're doing full service and kind of see how they're doing. And if it's a student that you know normally struggles and is whipping right through their exam, you might start asking some questions.
Yeah, I'll also just add to that, just a personal anecdote, that, you know, if you've taken this type of certification exam before, even, I would say this, even if you were cheating and somehow looking up the answer to every single question, it's unlikely that you would be able to, in the time limit that you're given, look up all those answers, answer everything correctly, and finish with a passing score. Is it possible? I suppose, but it's pretty unlikely, because if you figure it takes you 2 or 3 minutes to look up, you know, a correct answer to something and then input it into the exam, if there's 60 questions, you're not going to be able to do that within a 50-minute time limit. So just another thought on that. Some other questions here. So from Ingrid, how can Certiport not require the software? That's drastically different. So what is the environment and nature of the exam? It's the exact same experience for students. So although they don't require the student to install the software locally on their machine, they are connecting to a device in the cloud through the link that's provided that has the software installed. So they actually are working in a live environment for the application. It's just not installed locally on the machine. A question from Gurpreet, is the cost of the exam going to be the same? Yes, there's no additional charge for this. From Leanne, how do you become an organization administrator? So the first thing you need to do is register a Certiport authorized testing center, which you do through us, through CCI Learning. We help register that for you. And then from there, we assign you the organization administrator role.
I saw one other question up above. Someone asked about the cheating situation again, and are the companies concerned about it? Another thing that we've been told too is that these exams will be rewritten once this changes. I would love to see this last forever, because this is such a great scenario. It works on any machine, but just know that all parties at the table are cheating is something they're really working to address.
And there could be other potential pieces, you know, remember, you know, Eva, certainly we appreciate the questions. Remember that we're all, in Certiport included, Microsoft included, you included, us included, everyone is running really, really fast. And so, you know, they turned around a solution to directly address this as quickly as possible without having literally millions of students globally not being able to take certification exams. And so it's probably going to be an evolving process. I could envision, you know, this solution evolving to a place in the next couple of months or even couple of weeks where there's a webcam piece integrated, you know, where there's students are on the screen. Of course, the implications that come from that is then you potentially are excluding students that don't have access to a webcam. So, you know, you have to kind of weigh those different things. But if you were interested in this specifically for your students, there's nothing to say that, you know, you couldn't also run simultaneously a Teams call or a Zoom call or something like that to ensure that they are physically there taking the exam.
Yeah, and the greatest benefit of this, in my opinion, is that we won't always be distance learning. We will be back in the classroom, and this will be the absolute cat's meow, in my opinion, to be in the classroom, have these links, you're monitoring your students, it's platform agnostic, you're not worrying about, you know, IT integration. So yeah, I've got fingers, toes, arms, legs, all crossed that this works out. So it's fantastic.
And these are all really good questions as well coming from everyone. So please feel free to continue them if you have more. We will stay on the call as long as we need to address all of them.
Yeah, and just while there's not a question, or I see someone else's voice going. Sorry, go ahead. Nope. So just a note, the evolution of this in 6 weeks has been absolutely incredible. To the first week, we're all at home. We have no idea how we're going to get students testing, to Certiport coming out with, we spent the week coming up with a solution, to 2 weeks of piloting it, 3 weeks there, they've launched it in English globally. It's just been phenomenal. And literally as of yesterday, they were out 3 weeks on self-serve. They were out through June 1st on full serve. And you saw that scheduling tab. They are just every single day putting on more and more virtual machines so that this can be a truly equitable product and be available to everybody.
Ingrid made a comment here just in regards to, some of the frustrations that she's had with getting software installed in the lab in the past. I can tell you personally, I've seen this quite a bit. What happens, as you all I'm sure know, you live this every day. IT is quite separated from education, and what's a priority to education isn't always a priority to IT. And so there's always a bit of a push and pull there. So, in my humble opinion, if you don't have to involve IT to actually physically get software installed in your lab, sometimes that's a better solution. So I think, just to reiterate your point, if there's no software that's required to be installed, it's a win for everyone.
I'll get that one from Joanne. Yeah, so the notepad is individual per window. Every window that you're looking at in the admin login is a separate machine. So those people are actually, they can't even see each other. They can only see what they're seeing on their screen. You're seeing multiple screens because you are the admin. So they each have their own notepad that they can communicate on. I don't know. I could just go on and on about this all day long. Silence isn't my thing, I guess, because I'm a teacher. I'm used to that 8-second pause, and that's about it. But it's just incredible, the change that Microsoft certification can make in the lives of a student, or any test candidate for that matter. And even that, what you can really help students come to see is, once they've got those certifications, what they can do with them. My master kids were teaching community education courses to pay for their Future Business Leaders of America travel and their competition travel, or for their clubs or whatever. It was just unbelievable. And then they took that with, well, let's go to the shelters and let's teach these people so they can get a job, to running, business clothing drives. And it was just amazing to see what it's done, what they've done with their lives with these certifications. And then to see what those women did from the shelter, emotional.
What I love about your perspective on this, Kathy, is obviously, having been an educator in the classroom for so long, you have lived and breathed this, right? So you can speak to the direct result that students are seeing, and the impact on a personal level for them far better than I ever could. And so, I appreciate you taking the time to share your story about Ashley. And just sort of the value that you've seen. I mean, obviously, as an educator, you were so fantastic and such a great advocate for this that we hired you. So
yeah. Dan and Curtis were my backbone for sure. But yeah, it's for 10 years, it was a fantastic ride, and just to see the change. We used Jasper Active Give in our. That's how we taught at the community. The women's shelter. We used the Jasper Active Give. We taught in an abbreviated format, the kids did, and then we sent them home with that Jasper Active Give. That was a promotion that went on years ago. But it was just to hear those adults talk about the impact these students had on their learning, and to listen to those women from the women's shelter talk about how this was going to get their family out of the shelter, how it would help them get the job that they needed to support their family. And these kids were just like, we'd have a debrief after every session, and they couldn't believe it. They're like, we didn't know life could be like this. We have a really good life. So, and just to see the jobs, you know, like Ashley, 15 years old, her grandpa took her to work the first 2 weeks until she got her driver's license. And then she went to Running Start and worked at that job for 2 years, 40 hours a week. They worked around her Running Start schedule. And now she's 2 years in college and has got a double master or a double bachelor's degree and all this kind of stuff. And just all kinds of students. I mean, I could just go on and on with student stories of, you know, how this has changed their life. And the texts I've gotten, like I was in a training and, you know, you love real life stuff. I get this text from another kid at college. He's like, I'm sitting here in my study group and I just wanted you to know that we're supposed to use Excel for this statistics class we're in. And none of these kids know what's going on. I'm sitting here teaching everybody how to use Excel. I'm so glad I took this class from you. It's the only thing I'm using in college that I took from high school. So, you know, it was perfect timing. I shared it with the group.
Yeah, it's incredible that you know, I think all of us have these sort of personal anecdotes of the customers we've worked with and seen you know, from the students, such incredible success. I'll share one that just comes to mind for me as well. I a few years ago was working with some schools in Alaska, and in particular I was working with this sort of a middle school level education, but it was actually a juvenile detention facility. And so, you know, you can imagine the demographic there. Typically, students that are very disengaged from learning. You know, they don't want to be there, obviously, and maybe, you know, have had some trouble in the past and things like that. And the educator there, I'd been talking to for a while about introducing certification, and he was sort of hesitant at first, didn't really kind of buy into the concept. Eventually, I met with him in person. We talked about it. He said, okay, I'm going to give this a try. Flash forward a couple of months later, and he had an 85% pass rate in his classroom with these young offenders. One of them in particular, a gentleman named Dion, had pursued multiple certifications, had earned his master's certification, and had actually gone to his teacher and asked for my contact information personally so that he could call me and thank me for helping him turn around his education. So it's, you know, just the craziest stories that we all have that just show really the value of what we're doing. And you know, it's sometimes difficult to convey that all in a webinar, but we all have these personal anecdotes. And so it's amazing how something that you wouldn't think would necessarily be all that personal to somebody can ultimately really truly touch them.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. I had the opportunity to work between when I wasn't teaching and before I came to work here. Another partner I worked for, we deployed at the Job Corps. We had 10 Job Corps locations across the country, and wow, those stories and those young adults and just the diversity and the challenges they come from, and to see how this was changing their lives and they'd start working, and just the consistency, and it was just a new life for them.
It's pretty incredible. Okay, well, I think our chat has been a little bit quiet here for the last few minutes. We do still have quite a few people on the call. Maybe they're listening to our ramblings and our stories here, Kathy. If anyone has any final questions, now would be the time. I think otherwise we're going to close out the meeting here in the next 30 seconds or so. Thank you all for attending and for your wonderful questions. We'll stay on just for a couple more seconds here if there are any final questions.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I know it's very precious and valuable during these challenging times, so thank you for that. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and please do feel free to contact us with any other questions. Thanks a lot, everyone.